Hello there, and welcome to the Right Click Save podcast. I'm your host, Calcio, as always. Joining me today is Jimmy T. How you doing, Jim?
Yeah, I'm awesome. Thanks, bro. We've got some really good guests coming onto the podcast at the moment, and today is no exception.
I'm really excited today. I'm excited every week because for the first time we're joined by a fellow Brit. He's quite an interesting character. It's Toby Lasso. How you doing, Toby?
Hey everybody, nice to be here. Stoked to be on the podcast with you guys. I've been watching you guys for a little bit and really respect what you do in the space, so excited to be here.
Cheers, man. Glad to have you on.
Nice to get compliments. Yeah, so I really like what you are doing, Toby, which is a good sign because I think one of the really interesting things that you have started to do is show us the power of partnerships, which are really openly progressive, if that makes sense. Obviously, what you do with Vinny is really interesting, and I will get to that. But if we backscale that a little bit, obviously you're a Brit out in America. How did you actually make the transition and what made you do it in the first place?
Yeah, sure. I was in the British Army from 18 to 25 and had a lot of fun and just was a little bit of a wayward kid and needed some structure. And then I left as a lieutenant and moved over to America, just sort of like my time there. It came to an end. It was like, you either go on to be, a major and you make it your whole life, or you just try and do something else and sort of forge your way. And so, yeah, I finished that and I just didn't really know what I was going to do. My brother lived out in California and I wanted to just go and hang out with him for a bit and like surf for a few months and just figure out what my life was going to be about. And moved out to California and really just started getting back into trading cryptocurrencies. I originally got in 2017, and now I was out here with sort of little to do but skate and surf. I just very quickly fell down the NFT rabbit hole in sort of late 2020, early 2021, and yeah, it's been a whirlwind ever since. I now do this as my full-time job. I'm lucky to be connected with loads of really talented and amazing artists, and as the space grows, my network grows, and just we can end up doing more things, helping more people, and getting great art out there into the hands of willing and avid collectors.
That's awesome, man. I mean, talk about sort of a dream move: skating, surfing, trading, NFTs. I mean, it's got to be the dream for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I did it. It was almost like I just need to go and clear my head thing, and it just ended up turning into a full-time job. And so I do want to say, if anyone here is currently in the armed forces anywhere around the world, I know that they make it seem like you will be nothing if you leave, but there are so many opportunities for you to exercise your creativity, and especially in Web3, the opportunities are endless.
Yeah, definitely in Web3.
Was that something which was quite a worry then, almost? Like because obviously 7 years is quite a long time to do anything, least of all be that regimented. Was it something you were quite worried about just before you made the choice between staying on and becoming a major or taking the jump and moving on?
Yeah, it's something that, is it gets in your head a little bit about everything, because in the British Army, at least, you need to give a year's notice to leave. And so you give your notice to leave, and then they have a year to sort of like poke and prod you and say, hey, we could give you a little bit of a pay bump, or like if you get to this level, you can do this. And it just sort of the weaker people, not the weaker people, but the people who are just a bit more family orientated or need the money or whatever, it can really sort of trap you, because they've got a whole year to sort of like tell you to stay. And I know for a fact a lot of my friends have been worried to leave just because they don't necessarily know where their next paycheck will come from or whether their skills will transfer over. And it can be, you've got this safe thing where you could just turn up every single day and do XYZ and get paid. And so yeah, it's definitely a scary challenge, but one that if you relish the opportunity, it works out really well.
It's such a massive transition though as well, because you've obviously done 7 years of being very structured. You have to get up a certain time, you have to do everything in your day. I'd say Web3 is probably as far the opposite of a job as you could ever find. And I don't necessarily mean like, obviously you do what you want when you want to get up, but you have such creative freedom. And even the way you kind of get into the space is often quite accidental almost. And I was listening to one of the chats you'd done with a couple of other guys about how you met Vinny, which I'd love to talk to you about as well. How did you actually meet in the first place?
Well, we initially met through the Cool Cats Discord in sort of like early mid-July, when Cool Cats had just minted. And anyone who's listening and has been part of an NFT community, especially just after mint, it's an extremely exciting place, and you're connecting with people through the art and then also maybe the story and then with each other, and it's just this hotbed for the same people to come together and sort of mix with each other. And I met some of my closest friends in the whole space through the Cool Cats, and I'm sure that's the same for people with the project that they decided to get into and they really loved. And it's something that I just think is so beautiful about Web3. And yeah, I was really lucky to meet Vinny in sort of mid-July, and he'd been in the space for about 6-7 months already, and had just been sort of plotting and just getting involved. And it's something that I always recommend people. It's very easy to just want to run and jump into something, but sometimes it just takes some time to just sort of like soak in what's going on in the space, and understand how projects pump and projects dump and volume and all this other stuff, just to know that you're putting your money or parking your money in somewhere that's a bit safer than potentially something that could get rugged.
Nice. I mean, you've lucked out there, because unfortunately for me, you met Vinnie Hager, I met Calcio. So... Seems like
a good meet to me. And look, here we are. Here you guys are creating amazing content for everyone.
Messing with him.
I'll take that on the chin, because at least Toby appreciates me. But that's it, right? Isn't it weird? Because like I worked in an industry where, again, I'm going to mention it just to piss Jim off. I sold my collectibles business very recently, and it's a very toxic environment because it's really dog eat dog. The bottom line is, if something comes up and it's at a good price, everyone wants it because that's where you make your money. Whereas in anything to do with Web3, we're all benefited by each other doing well. If your projects are doing great, then the likelihood is other things will benefit from that push as well. And I think it's really nice to see how many partnerships are already forming. And you could probably list a dozen more people that you've connected with very recently that you've had a great time and a great experience with. And I just love to see the variety of partnerships that come out of it. Have you found it a lot more relaxing, almost, the way you can actually talk to people very freely than beforehand?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that the way that we all connect with each other, whether that's via Twitter or via Discord or whatever you're using, or it's Telegram groups, the access to people all around the world who have the same mindset as you is something that can't be understated. It's a really important aspect of the space, that community, and whether that community is in a Discord or in a Telegram group or whatever, it's still a community of people around the world. People talk to these people every single day. I mean, I talk to my friends that I made on the internet every day. Vinny is now one of my best friends, and it's all because we had this platform to sort of get to know each other.
I thought that for me, I mean, I often say this, talking about the same thing with other guests, but that was like the major difference for me between cryptocurrency and NFTs. And was it the same for you? You got into crypto and then into NFTs. Did you find 100%.
That? Yeah, and it's like, with cryptocurrency, you're trading a coin and there's no emotional connection to that coin. You buy it at the bottom and you try and sell it at the top, and it's just you're watching charts all day and candles and wicks and things. And with the NFT space, it might be a picture of a cat, or it might be a picture of an ape, or it could be a picture of a dog, but there's an emotional connection to that. And I chat quite a lot about the idea of removing the monetary value of something and adding the emotional connection to something, and how that is how we derive value from this space.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a massive thing for me, because again, within collectibles, the whole point is you're selling IP that people love, so you often aren't really that bothered. And you'll find, one guy I worked with said that it's probably the only market where you can charge someone an extortionate price for something and they'll come back for more, because they're so emotively connected to what they're buying that they just don't care, and they're quite happy to keep on doing it. And with NFTs, it's the same thing, right? That's what got me attracted in the first place. It was that someone could create something and I would care about it, and that I could then put money into it, and then it gets me utility as well. It's massive. If you don't mind, like focusing on the Vinny stuff, when you guys met, how soon after that did you realize you wanted to try to create something that people would eventually become really attached to?
It was extremely quick, actually. We'd met in the Discord and we were chatting around and we were friends, and then we followed each other on Twitter, and I was just sort of seeing the stuff he was posting every day, and I realized that this kid is an extremely talented artist from Baltimore. You scroll through his media tab, or I did back in July, and you realize that he's been doing this stuff for 10-15 years, and it was very heavily involved in the East Coast skate culture, which was something that I grew up around a lot. And yeah, like I think I reached out to him over DM, and I was like, hey, you're extremely talented, and if you're ever thinking about doing a project, I'd love to be able to help in some capacity. And we hopped on a FaceTime 2 days later than that, and it's just a kid in his bedroom in Baltimore who looks just like me, same age as me, from sort of like the exact same kind of background in a way. And then then like literally 3 days after our initial FaceTime, he had flown to LA and I picked him up from the airport and we built the Discord and it started from there. And it's like, it was kind of crazy. I remember like driving up to LAX to like pick him up and I was like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and like he passed the vibe check very quickly on the FaceTime. But then, just as soon as he got in the car, it was like we've been friends for months and months and months, and it's just got better from there. It's just crazy. It's a really beautiful part of this space for sure.
That's, the funny thing is with it, everyone talks about the rabbit hole, but what people don't realize is how many rabbit holes there are in NFTs, and it's just like multiple inceptions of rabbit holes.
Yeah, they just burrow off like crazy.
I just think it's weird because like there are so many other industries where it would be really like weird to form these friendships so quickly, and you'd be feeling a bit disingenuous or like you're trying to get something out of someone. But the fact that you can make so many genuine relationships so easily, and that everyone's quite happy with that as an idea. There are obviously loads of problems with any space, right? So we've got at the minute obviously the massive OpenSea glitch, which is awful, and there are loads of other terrible things. But in general, if we weigh it up, I feel like there's a really huge supporting factor that you can do a lot of good. I'm a letters holder because I wanted to get in the weather report as well, honestly, and I'm really interested to know how that came about, because again, you seem like the kind of guy who wants to create, wants to make things happen, and that's one part of it. But you also, from speaking to you even just for the last 15 minutes, I feel like wouldn't just rush something for the sake of making money short term. So what was it that convinced you that you felt like you were in the position to start the project?
Well, I'd just been in the space for about 6 to 8 months, and I'd seen projects come and go, and I'd seen what worked and I'd seen what hadn't, and I thought, hey, I could take a stab at maybe making something a little bit more unique. And then with Vinny, with Vinny's artwork being the way that it is, and I was just in love with it and still am enamored by it. It sort of made sense, and but we really did sit down and discuss every little bit about how we wanted the project to be. He initially wanted to release 300 pieces, and I said, if you can push it to 1,000, I think that's a good volume driver, and it can be good to sort of sit alone as a genesis. And he drew them all by hand, all 1,000 of them in about a month and a half, and he's just like, it's crazy. But yeah, it was a combination of timing and just sort of understanding that the market was ready for something like that, and it took sitting in the market for 6 to 8 months to realize that maybe this could be something that was good. And we initially, when we released it, we weren't like, this is going to go crazy or do whatever, but we just wanted to build a small community. I like to refer to letters as like a counterculture NFT, in the way that skateboarding is a counterculture sport. People put it behind their profile pictures, and it started out with our friends. We brought on board a lot of people from the Cats early on because they just loved Vinny, and us because we were big cat people. And then it just sort of slowly grew, and we released it just before NFT NYC, which was done on purpose so that we could go and talk to people at NFT NYC about this sort of thing, and people could then meet them in real life and see the murals, and just sort of create that in real life connection to the NFT that had just come out. And it's just been a slow burn process like that, but it's definitely been created that way so that it gets into the hands of the people who want to hold them, rather than people who are just trying to quickly flip stuff.
Awesome.
I love mine. It's got the most ironic name. It's You Can't Sit With Us, which, based on the conversation we just had, is quite it's quite off-piece. That's
named after the Mean Girls quote, by the way.
I thought it would be, yeah. That's part of the reason I bought it, because I literally thought, I know where that's from. I like it. It's quite cool. I love as well the shoes he's been doing. I know that he can't. One of his last spaces, he mentioned that if he got offered a deal with Converse, he'd obviously take it. But for now, it's going to be sort of one-on pieces. I love all of that as well, because it's about that emotive connection. And I think that there are a few projects. Another one for me is Cool Man's Universe, which I know you've met Danny recently, where it feels like, again, obviously let's not pretend it. Everyone wants to make a bit of money, but it feels like another project where he cares. Like, he actually is bothered about the characters. There's lore behind them, and I'm guessing with Weather Report, a lot of what you guys have been doing as well is about making sure that there's value for the holders. Is there anything you can tell us that might give us a bit more information on Weather Report just before you guys launch?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the art direction and everything is a testament to our amazing art and creative director, Zach, who's the original founder. He created the idea for Weather Report over a year ago. And it's based in early 2000s skate culture and streetwear culture, you know, like those World Industries characters and you know, a bit of like some flip skateboarding decks and stuff like that. It's just like that nostalgia hit for people our age in our late 20s and early 30s. You know, we grew up in as kids with that sort of stuff, and it's just nice to be able to bring it back around in a fresh take. We have a huge amount of plans for Weather Report. There's a lot of stuff that I just can't say at this point because we have people signing NDAs and contracts and stuff like that. But through Zach and Will's inroads to streetwear and the music industry, I mean, they've both had very successful streetwear brands they've launched and sold in the last 10 to 15 years. And Will's worked an awful lot in the music industry as well as Zach. And so we have some really exciting like rap artists and other stuff who are signed on that we can't really like announce yet, but people who are like who are really excited about the project. And it was nice to see that that come to us, you know, like we posted it out on Instagram, and then like Diplo messaged Zach and he was like, cool, like how do I get one of these, you know, and like stuff like this, because they have they all know each other, you know, and then they go, okay, I've been sort of thinking about NFTs for a while and I see that it's going off, but obviously I'm not going to spend 90 ETH on a Bored Ape, and so for them to like resonate, and people like in the music industry to immediately resonate without us having to push it to them and come back and be like, oh, Zach runs this project, let's talk to Zach, and so yeah, it's been really nice. There's a ton of stuff, like we want to make it, the high level plans we have for it is to make it an international brand, like across the world. We have activations that will happen all across the United States and in Europe and in Japan and stuff like that, including just like plans for it to be a massive actual streetwear brand. We have our own we're linked in with another company we own called Chainmade, who like we have a huge factory here in LA where we make clothes and like stuff that, you know, like and home goods, even like ashtrays like Supreme do and stuff like that. So we can actually push out for the first time a merch line or a clothing line, or, you know, like a just adjacent to this, something that is actually extremely high quality, you know. I mean, the company that we're linked in with, they make clothes for like Fear of God and like all these other like really unique like hype brands and stuff like that. So it's exciting to see that moving in parallel with it. And when we do launch, and it's going to be far more than an NFT, and that's where I'll leave it. I don't want to go on a whole rant about it.
Cool. So I'm kind of expecting this awesome kind of campaign now leading up to Mint that's going to be releasing this alpha along the way and building the hype up.
I've just never seen a project, like I've never been part of a project that's had this much hype before, and it's something that it's kind of worrying sometimes, because you're just like oh my god, like people are like fighting for whitelist in Discord when we don't even have an activity bot for people getting whitelist. It's crazy. But yeah, we're really excited to deliver something truly unique, and there's a part of our project in the rarer end of our spectrum that will have stuff that people have never seen before, which is super exciting.
Oh, that's cool. I think that's what I love about the space, is that you can do things that people haven't necessarily done before. It's like one of the only spaces that is something you can have an idea or a way of execute something, and it's not necessarily that it's been done 5-15 times before.
Mm-hmm.
How does it actually feel though? Like I just genuinely, just to make it as simple a question as possible, it must be mad. Like a few years ago, you're in the army. It's a like very structured, serious opportunity, and you kind of work in like in that sense. Now you're just free to do whatever you want, and you've got like an enormous following of people who are desperate to pay what will essentially be thousands, tens of thousands of dollars for your project. Is that a little bit overwhelming sometimes?
Oh, absolutely. You know, I mean, I think anyone who says otherwise is not paying attention. You know, I've gone from having, you know, like 5 or 6 DMs a day to having 50. And that is extremely hard. Like I built my whole Twitter brand from the ground up, like being myself and just trying to be the most positive person ever. It's why I was called Ted Lasso beforehand, because it was named after the TV show. And so like my individual way of like going and responding to every comment and liking everything has now become untenable, because there's just too much to do. And I'm like, okay, well, when do I actually work? And then how do I? And so it's hard. And I feel bad about it, because, you know, I want to be able to connect with absolutely everyone who's connecting with this project, because it means the world to me. But there's also a ton of work to be done on the back end and with building things. So it's a checks and balances system, really.
It's very cool. One thing I've definitely noticed about the space is the outside perspective of NFTs for people that aren't involved in the space at all, is it's all full of scammers, bad actors. It's not a great space to be involved with. You're going to lose all your money. But then when you get part of it, you realize that how many genuinely nice and responsible people that are running some of these projects, and that, especially after speaking to Cool Man Stan last week, that for me at the moment is like really shining through.
Yeah, Cool Man is a wonderful human being, and I mean, like I was lucky enough to go to his apartment, and like it's the coolest thing in there. Like he's just got like tons of Coolman's Universe stuff going back like 10 years, and he's just such a lovely human being. And yeah, I mean, like I think that these NFT projects, I think of them a lot of the time as like the Web3 version of Kickstarter in a lot of ways. You're going, hey, you know, like you're my investor here, and we're trying to build something, and we're trying to build the initial capital in our treasury to be able to do things that provide value back to you. And it's just kind of funny when you think of Kickstarter, and it's like you just get some sort of like cheap reward, and then that would come back to you. And now we've just grown it out into a decentralized way, and yeah, it's really cool. I mean, like these companies that we have the ideas to make, and we've got these huge big plans. 10 years ago, you'd have to go to someone in a suit and be like, hey, I want this amount of money, and you'd have to create a huge thing. But here we can crowdfund our dreams. And it's something that I don't take lightly, because although people are buying these NFTs, they're investors to me at the end of the day. You know, they're part of a community, but they also deserve our complete respect, because they're giving us money to invest further in the project and hopefully bring value to their NFT.
And that's 100% the right attitude to have, because so many projects fail because they don't appreciate that. And then it comes the day after mint, and everyone's like, right, what next? And they're like, oh shit, I thought my job was done. You know, I've just been working my ass off for 3 months up to mint. Mint happens. I was going to take a little break. And I'm like, no. This is where the work begins.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because there's a line there where like you have some rabid people who are just trying to flip their NFT for 2x, 3x, 4x. And like, I don't think necessarily that people should have the roadmap thing dumped on them. Like, we need to see a roadmap for the next 6 to 8 months. There needs to be some sort of continued value add, and you need to be looked to be growing. But the idea for a company in Web 2 to scale 1,000% in the first two or 3 weeks after IPO is just unbelievably, irresponsible. And so there needs to be like an understanding there where like, okay, like let's go away and let's continue to build on what we've done here. But it's not going to happen in a week after mint. You know, we have to realize that like look at what the Bored Ape Yacht Club and Cool Cats are doing now. Like, we're almost a year from minting Cool Cats, and they're releasing their token, and they've taken their tokenomics and like pets and everything, and they've really taken their time in making sure that everything they built is correct and done the right way. And people have stood by them because they've been open and honest and transparent the whole way through, and they've delivered value. But it hasn't been like, hey, we need to drop a companion, we need to do this, you know. And just like there's some projects right now that I just feel are just like front loading the hype, and there'll be a huge dump from them because you know, it just doesn't work like that.
There always needs to be a bit of a playbook for new projects to understand that the way that you do your whitelisting can really seriously affect your project down the line. If you giving people the ability to mint 10 of your project, that they'd be very, very expectant that they're going to be dumping them straight afterwards as well. And if you have this huge roadmap, people are going to expect progress on it straight away. So you really have to kind of, you're right, manage expectations, and also manage your key parts like your mint really carefully.
Yeah, it's definitely the most stressful part, is the minting and the whitelist part of things. Like, we're very keen to avoid gas wars. I mean, obviously, like, there'll be people who don't mint. We're trying to whitelist all 10,000, and every single wallet can mint 2. That's the max. Yeah. And then we'll have to go to a thing afterwards. But like, it's definitely without a doubt the most stressful part of building a project is making sure, because everyone's like, when whitelist, this, that, and the other. And when the demand for your project is like 10x the supply for your project, it's extremely hard to make sure those people get those things you want. And yeah, sometimes it's nice to be like post mint and be like, okay, right, they're all out in the world, and we can just sort of deal with it now.
Do you think we're going to get to a stage soon that a bit of a curveball, that we're going to find collections moving above the 10k kind of trend that we have at the moment, just because there's so many more people coming into the space?
It's interesting. I mean, I've been thinking about this for a while, and I think you look at some of the projects that have tried to do 20k, like Atom Bomb Squad and some of the other stuff, and they kind of sit for a while until the demand comes there. And you know, that's a great project. Like, and I'm a huge fan of Bobby Hundreds. He's a close friend of mine, but it's just like, it's so interesting to see these projects try these things and then do it. And the hundreds is now moving again, and it's just taken 4 or 5 months to find that demand for 20,000 of these pieces. And it does, like, it makes me a little bit weird, especially when like Adidas comes in and they're like, hey, like 22,000 of these things, and it's like, does it feel a bit more like, especially when you're like on our end and we're like thinking about mint price, and we're like, okay, if we make the mint price a little bit higher, we immediately have more capital to to work with, and then build out like massive in real life events, and like the difference between like selling something for 0.05 and 0.1 and 0.15, the capital that you then initially like put into the treasury is so much more, and you could do so much more with it. You're not having to wait 2 or 3 months for the royalties to come through and then fill up the treasury. So it's always a balance thing, and you just need to read the room really, and if anything, the NFT Twitter will tell you exactly what they're thinking all the time.
I guess we're going to find that there's going to be innovation there. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see that if we move to almost like a mint window where there's an allocated time. So, okay, we're going to mint for 48 hours. There's unlimited supply within those hours, kind of thing, for whitelists.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that. That's a good idea.
Hape are going to be doing that. They've got, but it's 2 points that kind of come off of that. The Hape are actually going to be doing that. The Hape Beast project. They're going to have for their future drops a window of time to mint. But then again, the other thing I was going to ask you about as well really is this. We've seen a lot of the 3D projects justify a much higher mint price based on the fact that they are supposedly higher quality, which is make of it what you will. I guess, though, with higher mint prices, it's sort of justified, especially when we know a project is going to go higher, right? Like with Weather Report, I don't want to kind of speculate on the price, but I'd imagine that if you mint it at, say, 0.1, that there's a very high chance it's going to go above that price. So I guess as a founder, it must become quite a difficult question to work out whether or not it's worth pushing it a little bit more, because then, as you said, you've got that bigger bank to be able to deliver on what you want to be able to do. But equally, you don't want to push it too far and say, we want half an ETH, and then you lose the respect of your minters. That must be quite a difficult balance.
Exactly, yeah. And I think I've seen a couple of projects do the 0.5 thing, and you know what, they will all sell, of course they will, but you do lose that foundational trust with the people, because they're like, well, they minted for this, and it's like it's almost like a stamp on your project, like, and like no one will ever forget what you minted for. But then like you look at like Cool Pets releasing their mint price for half an ETH. That makes total sense for me. They're sitting at a 15 ETH floor. Exactly, yeah. People are upset, and it's like you can't expect the Cool Cats team to not actually derive some value from their initial mint, because they deserve it, and especially to like build what they want to build and like pay the people they want to build out an entire game. Like, it makes sense. But the newer projects, I feel like if you go too high, you will always forever have that stamp on your community.
There was an interesting one the other day. I'm not sure if you're following Creeps, that have been flying up recently. They just did an additional mint for another part of their collection, and they did 5,000 items at 1 ETH each. And they sold out in about 20 minutes, 5,000 of them. So that's netted them like 15 million, something like that, which considering their initial collection minted out like 0.08. As you can see that they kind of seen the price recently and thought, hang on, we could let's get some cash into the bank here while it's hype.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I've seen a couple ones, like they do Dutch auctions, and like that's kind of intelligent, because you're putting the onus on the people to say how much are you willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's going to go for higher than it. But I think that inevitably might fail more than it does well, because people are just excited to get their hands on something, and the hype they believe is higher than the price. And it's like back to what you were saying. About how important it is to, once you mint out, not fall below your mint price. And so like if it's 1 ETH, like it could be very easy to fall below that mint price. Or even if it's half an ETH, it could be very easy to fall below that mint price. You just find that sweet spot.
Well, you see, I seem to find it affects the original NFT, especially with an additional drop. So the way I've been looking at it is that these collections almost have like a market cap. And even though that market cap which is all of their different mints they're doing together, even though it's still going up, a lot of people will sell their original one or the multiples they have of the original to get themselves liquid so they can buy into the additional. And you find so that value will come down, and then you'll have almost like a bit of an arbitrage event between the two. But it's just like interesting, the kind of the economics around it have always interested me.
No, that's actually super interesting, and I often think, like I have always thought about when I am following a project, whether it's Coolman's or Cats or whatever, and I'm checking full prices, once a day at least. In my mind, I build a chart about it, right? And I'm like, okay, well, Coolman's has been consolidating between 1.5 and 0.83, and I can see it in my mind go bouncing up and down on the floor, and then that's a wind up to a pop,
Yeah.
And so it's sometimes hard to think of it that way, because at the end of the day, they're just tokens that we've got attached to. So it's exactly the same way that crypto markets work.
Absolutely.
I'm just generally also curious from your point of view. It's a question we ask everyone. I make a point of doing it. Cool Cats obviously minted at 0.02. So I'm back in July. Very good idea to get into them. We had Eddie as Kongs on, who bought like 45 Genesis Kongs at the right time.
I think they hit
Fair play to have the conviction. He did quite well. But what my question is, as a follow-up, let's say you're new to the space, right? You have a guy coming in and he says, like, honestly, I'm really confused. Well, you meet someone in a coffee shop, right? So it's a genuine setting where you've got time to actually chat. And he says, I'm really interested in NFTs. I've got about an ETH. What would you do? And I don't mean specific projects because I'm not like asking that, but how would you kind of go about getting into NFTs if you've got, say, an ETH or two right now?
Yeah, and I mean, it's interesting to remember, it's extremely important to remember that the majority of people have an ETH or less than that. And so like when you're like, I love the cats, it's like no one has 15 ETH, no normal person has 15 ETH, just buy one. But yeah, I think the best thing anyone can do is just immerse themselves in the space. And that is in a bunch of different ways, whether that's like joining Discords, definitely getting on Twitter and just following people and like not worrying about your ratio on Twitter and just following as many people as you see fit that you're like, okay, that person's saying something interesting and I like that. And just like I was saying before, like trying to sit on that one ETH for like a month maybe, and it's hard because it's like you're trying to go good luck, you're trying to go against human nature. But the best way to avoid scams and rugs and projects that you might think are the best thing in the entire world but you don't realize are a huge red flag to someone who's been in the space for 6 months is just spending some time and soaking it in, watching podcasts like your guys, watching YouTube videos, and just like understanding like these are all educational tools that people should be consuming before they put their money on chain, in my opinion. And I mean, like, everyone is different, and like human nature is to just try to rush into something. But if you want to have the best lay of the land and understand where the best use of your money is, you're going to just need to take the time. And that's maybe 2 weeks to 4 weeks for me.
And that is the hardest thing, though, isn't it? Especially probably the best thing to say is don't move the ETH into your MetaMask wallet or whatever wallet you use until you're ready. After that first month, maybe, because I don't know about you guys, but ETH burns a massive hole in my wallet.
Yeah.
When it's in there, it's just any little thing. I get a little text from Calcio, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've got a FOMO into that.
They're good calls. I told you to buy a letter actually at a point. I think just under an ETH, which you didn't listen to me on, but it's fine.
It's about 2.5 ETH, I think.
Yeah, well, it's fine. I love the letters. But one of the things we kind of round off on is a couple of quick fire questions. I'll pass over to Jim because he's the master of the questions.
I'll jump in. Yeah, so we do quick fire questions with all of our guests at the moment. So don't think about them, quick as you can. So the first one would be, what's your worst ever trade?
Oh, I minted 5 Bored Apes and I sold them all for 0.2.
Oh no!
Hands down my worst trade. Yeah.
Oh, I bet that hurts still thinking about it.
It does, and I actually did a Netflix documentary a few months ago for something that's coming out in the summer, and the guy who was interviewing me has a Bored Ape, and he like was almost crying. He was like, this is the worst thing I've ever heard. He's like, how do you live with yourself? And like inevitably, it's actually fine for me because and I'm being completely honest here when I say this, right? If I hadn't have done that so early on, I wouldn't have gone all in on the cool cats, and I wouldn't have found Vinny, and I wouldn't have found Will, and I wouldn't have found all of my friends, and so my life is far better off because of it. And so people need to like, it stings. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm sure it stings, and like I may end up buying in later on, and that's fine. But inevitably, every move you make here, has repercussions, whether that's good or bad, and you just need to move on to the next thing. Like it's not a big deal. 100%. The next moon is around the corner.
And it was still profit, right?
I made profit. I made like 2x.
That would have been the worst if you took a loss on it as well. Yeah. But yeah,
I was hyped when they sold. I was so hyped. I was like, let's go.
Yeah, delete that message about 2 weeks later. All right, well, let's flip it a bit more positive. Best ever trade?
Definitely my cool cats. I was very lucky to get into the community early, and then I paper handed some and I bought back in, and then I met Klon, and now we're very close friends with a lot of people who made that project, and I'm now I found the project because I loved it, and now I'm investing even further in it because I love the people involved. They're like genuinely some of my closest friends in the whole world, and so that's hands down my best trade. I mean, now I have 4 cats and a bunch of other stuff, and I bought them all below 6 ETH, and that's a win for me.
Nice. Awesome. Rarest reveal from a mint?
Oh, dude, I'm so bad at minting things, like so bad. And I think that honestly, the answer to that question is I minted some crypto Rarest, which is my friend's project, my friend Dos's project. Yeah, we do love the Rarest, and it's important. Like I minted last night, like just before they minted out, and I minted a zombie Rarest, so I was very happy with that.
Nice, awesome. If you could send one project to 100 ETH, what would it be?
It can't be letters, and it can't be weather report.
It's going to say cool cats.
And it can't be cool cats.
It can't be cool cats either. Let me just hold on. Give me 2 seconds here because I wanna just make sure there's a few projects that like I think really deserve a lot more attention than they already have.
I thought you're just looking into your portfolio now, right? Which one
I'm
of
just
these?
No. I mean, I really love this project called Toto is a Good Dog, and like the floor is like 0.0008 or something like that, and it's this Thai artist who creates like he had this little like fluffy dog. It was one of the first NFTs I ever bought, and he's hand drawing like 2,000 of these. And I don't know if he's stopped, or I don't really know what's going on, but I just love it. I think it's like one of the cutest things ever. And like I remember when I was like in the space, when I was in the space earlier in the year, the head of the South Bank Center bought one, and I was like, that's so cool. What's that project? And it just turns out this Thai kid drawing these dogs every single day. And I think that there's a lot of projects that just deserves a lot more your eyes on it, but just by the way that the space works, it'll never happen. But yeah,
it's so
we
hard
love
to
Toto.
get your stuff out there, up above, the crowd, especially without kind of a good team or people who know what they're doing within sort of the way to market them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's beautiful on the other hand just to see people creating their art and putting it on the blockchain and selling 100%. It, and yeah, it's crazy because we're all looking for the next moon or the next 100 ETH, but there's people out here just drawing and minting them projects and making life-changing money, and that's wonderful.
Those are the people that we want to support. Absolutely. And the opposite question. So, all right, nobody loses any money, but if you could delete one project.
If I could delete one project.
Yeah. You had to.
My goodness.
Gun to the head, otherwise the cool cats get it.
Oh my goodness, not the cool cats. I think probably Yetis, right? And I know that's like it's like a joke that like the super Yetis are like we all bought into Yetis and like the floor won't go anywhere. But I do worry when like we get on these big spaces and we start memeing about the Yetis and there's like thousands of people in this space and they go and buy them. Yeah. And I think that can be quite dangerous. And it's not that I don't like the Yetis or whatever and I don't find it funny, but I am worried. I've become increasingly more worried about the power that people with more followers in the space have on people's actual financial decisions. And it's like, shit, we're just up on spaces memeing with our friends, but there's like 1,000 people in the audience and some of those people are going to action what you say as a joke. And that kind of worries me sometimes because I'm like, oh no, like your money is now just sitting there and maybe lost. And it might have been by some offhanded, silly quip that I said. And that worries me.
Yeah, so someone said the other day in our Discord they were going to watch my wallet and copy trade me. And I was like, don't do that, man. No, that's not a good idea.
I pray that OpenSea doesn't let you see the hidden tab in your wallet anytime soon.
Oh yeah, that'd be bad. I've got some terrible evil things in there.
Yeah, I've added a few things to that this week, that's for sure.
It is hard. I think as well, the biggest thing, which is not perhaps talked about enough, is 10,000 is not a very big number, right? It's not. It's just and anything less than that is even smaller number, right? Obviously. And so...
Alpha here today.
There you go. You've learned something today. You can go away, tell all your friends, go speak to all those people who are very important about how you learned how 10,000 is a bigger number. But I think one of the biggest things with that ultimately is that if you, as you said, you get the right people who are representing the right brands, it's very easy to influence people very quickly. And I think that we've tried to only have people on who are genuine, open with what they do, and they don't just shill the shit out of everything so that they end up benefiting. So I think that that's quite an appreciated asset and trait that you have really as well. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, awesome. It's been awesome having you on, man.
It's been so great, and I want to say just quickly how much I appreciate what you guys do, and you're out here teaching people and bringing more of the space to a wider audience, and yeah, just thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Appreciate that, man. Thank you.
We'd love to, and hopefully this is all right. After the reveal of Weather Report and things like that, I did get on the spaces with you or have you back on to kind of talk about how the experience was and things like that. But it's been a pleasure. I've been your host, Calcio, obviously joined by Jimmy T, and Toby's been with us. Thank you very much for listening to the Right Click Safe podcast. Have a lovely day, gents. Thank you very much.